planty friends, welcome back. My name is Shannon and this is Planted 386. If this is your first time here, thank you so much for clicking. I appreciate you. If you've been around, I appreciate you so much. Just looking to build a little planty community over here, and so far we're off to a pretty good start. Thank you guys so much for 500 subscribers. We hit that when I was actually about to fly out to Vermont for my trip with my mom. I'm just getting back, so I do feel a little bit rusty, but I have this video idea in mind, and I've had it in my mind for a while. Basically, the plant that I would like to talk about today is Philodendron Spiritus Sancti, and if you've been around, if you've been in the community for a while, you know that this plant has been very controversial, if you will. We're not really going to dive into much of that in today's video. I pretty much just want to talk about my experience in growing this plant. I know when I first got it, I went on YouTube and I was trying to find information on just care tips, and I found that there was more videos surrounding the drama around the plant rather than just growing the plant. So that's kind of what I want to talk about today. Before we get into it, I would appreciate it so much if you subscribed if you haven't already. Hit the little bell, it helps me out so much. And yeah, let's just get into it. I forgot to mention that I am also on Instagram and TikTok as well under Planted 386, and if you are interested in more like daily planty content, you can also find me over there. Okay, so let's talk about this beautiful plant. So I got her back in roughly October of last year, so 2023. I did get her on sale, and I do believe that I got her at a very good price, all things considered. A local grower, a local nursery to me, actually got a batch of these in. They do a sort of seasonal sale about 3 times a year. So I do believe that I got her in October. The first photo that I have of her is in December, and I will post it over here so you can kind of take a look at where we started. The plant was actually smaller than that when I received it. In that photo, you can clearly see that there's one prominent leaf, and that one did grow in my care, but I had had the plant for probably a couple months before I got that. We kind of went through a little bit of a roller coaster, and that's kind of what I want to get into. So as you can see, the plant she looks tattered. I mean, you can definitely see the spots. Hopefully you can see them. When I turn it around, you'll be able to see it even more. But each leaf has the spots. Pretty much all of them have it. You'll definitely be able to probably see it in the back better. I will take pictures as well and kind of just post them in at some point so you guys can kind of see better. I don't know how much the camera is actually picking up. But this plant is notorious for producing EFN, at least in my care. So basically when I got her, I do believe that she was a tissue culture. She was pretty small, and honestly I was petrified because it was quite an investment, but I really, really love this plant. I love it for what it is. I don't really care that it's rare or anything like that. As the leaves start to mature a bit, this is the most recent one, we're starting to get those really narrow lobes that this plant is known for, and of course the elongated leaf shape. So for me personally, it was the overall appearance of the plant. Also, this is one that looks really beautiful, styled in like a hanging basket. So that's something that I might get into at a certain point. But for right now, she's living in my Millsbow tall. And the reason that I keep her in the cabinet is because I find that, oops, I just tore this leaf with my nail. I find that this plant needs quite a bit of humidity, far more than what I anticipated. It does come from Brazil, so obviously it's a tropical environment and it is very humid. I guess I just kind of thought that once it acclimated to my conditions, like all of the other ones growing in ambient, that it would be fine. However, when I started out with this plant, I did try to acclimate it to ambient and it did not go over so well. I got a lot of crisping, a lot of leaves that sort of yellowed and kind of fell to the wayside. So it took a while for her to kind of establish, and it only started to establish itself once I put it into the cabinet. My cabinets usually run anywhere from a 65 to, we'll say, at this time I did have a different cabinet that I kept it in. It was a Barina sort of greenhouse cabinet, with like a plastic sort of covering. It wasn't a glass cabinet, and that cabinet held the best humidity and grew plants the best out of all of my cabinets. I ended up trading it once I got my Millsbo tall, but it was pretty much prime growing conditions, and once I put her in there, she really started to take off. So here we are nearing a year later, and this is pretty much where we're at. At this stage, she is giving me a leaf about every 3 weeks, pretty much as soon as the previous leaf hardens off, it is working on the next one. So I do have another one coming here. It does come in a really beautiful sort of red, and then it changes to like a bronze, then it sort of goes green. I don't really know why I struggle so much with EFN on this plant. It's kind of similar to the Florida philodendron, just in the way that they produce big droplets of EFN. This one doesn't necessarily produce the droplets on the petioles as much as it does on the leaves. I constantly have to wipe the leaves down. This plant does not have pests. She is just like that. So that is something to take into consideration. If you're someone that doesn't really like tattered foliage, if visually that bothers you, this may not be the plant for you. However, that's just in my experience, and in your care, you may not run into EFN at all. Overall, once I sort of figured out that this plant needed more humidity than I originally anticipated, it's been relatively easy to care for. Like I said, I keep her in my Millsbo tall. At this moment, it is at 72% humidity, and it is growing under Barina lighting. What else? Oh, she does produce some pretty wild aerial roots. I can kind of show you one here. Similarly to an anthurium, so I have pretty much potted her into the same sort of fashion that I would my anthurium, and I treat her similarly to my anthurium. I may water her a little bit less, but for the most part, in terms of layering the moss, and just the overall soil mixture, I have her pretty much growing just like my anthurium. The soil mixture is just a very, very airy soil mixture. I use ProMix, and yeah, I further add, like, I usually add some form of bark or perlite, and I do keep this in a cache pot, and I do often keep a reserve of water in the cache pot, and that is again how I pretty much grow my anthuriums, and so far that's worked. I find that she's not afraid to be wet or damp, so long as the soil mixture is airy enough, you shouldn't have an issue. In terms of propagation, I have never tried to propagate this plant. I am honestly terrified to do so because the internodal spacing is pretty much um, it's pretty much non-existent. So I'm just scared to take a cutting of it. I don't really have a desire to. I kind of just want to see this flourish. I want to see it grow really big, and eventually I would like to get it in some sort of hanging basket. I do have a spot out in the backyard in summers, like spring and summer, most of fall down here. Where she can hang out, and I think she'd grow beautifully. I've been playing around with an Atapapuense. I do have one kind of growing in this spot, and so far she really likes it, so I think this would do fine there. And then just pulling her in the winter months, that's kind of where I'm going with it. But yeah, I just found that overall there wasn't a ton of care tips on this plant. And I hope that this video helps someone if you happened to pick one up, or if you are lucky enough to find one. They are still pretty difficult to find, at least around here anyways, maybe online, but in terms of like local growers, it's just not something that you see very often. I thought I heard somewhere that they were going to be tissue culturing these, and I do believe that mine was a tissue culture, thus making it a little bit easier to get your hands on one. But I can't say that I've seen like an influx of this coming out on the market or even in my local nurseries. So I would think that the best place to check is going to be online if this is something that you're interested in and you don't already have one. But yeah, if you did get your hands on one, I wish you the best of luck growing. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask down below. I hope you guys have all been doing well. I just want to thank you so much for the 500 subscribers. It's just like, we started this in January, so I'm just like, I don't know, I just didn't expect that. So yeah, it's exciting, and you've helped me reach my first milestone on YouTube. So next stop is 1,000. Yeah. Anyways, the next video, let me know what you guys would be interested in seeing down below. I thought about doing my Monstera collection because I have not covered them yet, or perhaps just like things that I've learned as a plant parent in my 2 years of kind of growing. So yeah, you guys let me know, and I will see you in the next one. Say bye guys, thanks for watching.